The following will contain spoilers for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Let's move on to, I think, one of the last main characters in this review. That is your boy, the High Evolutionary, played by Chuck Woody. Chuck Woody has worked with James Gunn in Peacemaker. I really did enjoy that. And I will go ahead and say that this depiction of the High Evolutionary was possibly one of my favorites out of the whole movie. I loved him. I thought he was fantastic. I don't really have any complaints at all. I'm glad that these two were able to collab together and make another film because I believed in him. I believed in his mission. I mean, he was evil, but he was very, very convincing. I loved everything about him. And so, Elia, I want to stick with you, man. How did you feel about Chuck Woody Awuji coming through as the High Evolutionary? Did it work for you? Did it not? How you feeling, sir?
Yeah, second rewatch made me kind of appreciate the depiction of the character a lot more than the first time. Because the first going, I was just like, motives were kind of missing. Expanding on the character's kind of power and where it stems from was kind of missing. So on a second rewatch, kind of picking it, and it wasn't like fed spoon to the audience as far as getting all that information, but there were subtle nods that throughout the film you noticed his powers. He was kind of experiment on himself. You notice little things on his head. Every time we saw him, it became more and more apparent. There's a line or two where he's getting rocked out of his cage and he's like in the middle of his therapy session and something came up and he just wanted to immediately get Rocket's idea. So, and it all alludes to him inevitably coming to his powers. We can kind of define gravity and all that different stuff. So the second rewatch, okay, that's his powers weren't fully fleshed out and fully explained, but it kind of gave you enough to kind of understand, filling in the blanks. The motives of it all, I still do wish. And this is another character that, as far as comic book knowledge goes, very little. My only introduction to this character was on an episode of X-Men, and he was on Spider-Man Unlimited. And that was like my only information. I didn't really read him from the comics. So this was kind of like whatever James Gunn does with the character. It won't bother me as much as like Adam Warlock was a little bit more familiar with. So they did take some creative liberties, like the idea of him being like a mad scientist from the comics. I wish they would have maybe adapted that more in this adaptation, because to me, it almost seemed like he was an alien. He was like, as Gamora says, in some corners of the galaxy, he's considered to be a god. So I'm like, okay, how long has he been around? Because he says to one of his scientists, we've been doing this for hundreds of years. So I'm just like, where does he stem from? How long has he been around? We hear he's created multiple civilizations and different races. So it's like this character seems to be not Thanos, but almost like a Thanos level of like, he's been around. He's a big threat. And my only issue is with all that buildup, and I love me some Guardians, but the way he was waxed at the end of the film almost negates all the stuff of him being built to be this really big, bad, looming threat that's been around since the origins, even before the Guardians. So I'm kind of torn on the handling of the character, but I won't take away anything from the performance of this actor. My only entry point to him was Peacemaker. I'm excited to see. I'm pretty sure James Gunn is going to probably recruit him again to be involved in DC. I could see him perfectly being like a Martian the Manhunter type of character if he decides to go that route. But yeah, man, the performance was good. I just wish that the interpretation and the fleshing out of the character was a little bit more developed, because if we're being honest, villains in the Guardians Rogues Gallery from the 3 films haven't been the best. And I do, it is kind of hard to probably have like a big standout villain when you have 8 other characters trying to focus on. But out of the villains, and it's by default, he probably is the best one that they faced against, even though they didn't really have that much screen time with the villain besides Rocket. So I'm kind of indifferent with him, but nothing taken away from the performance.
Right on. And just real quick, looking at his powers, superhuman intelligence, telepathy, telekinesis, precognition, and cosmic awareness, vast matter and energy manipulation, ability, size manipulation, sentient armor, grants superhuman strength, durability, and vast regeneration capabilities. To echo off of what you were saying, Elliot, he was a badass. I'm gonna talk about the ending in a second, but I love the way that the hierarchy of power in this film, because Adam Warlock was at the very beginning. He whooped Drax and he whooped Nebula, but then High Evolutionary just used his powers and threw Adam Warlock against the wall like he was just nothing. It was squeezing. I was like, oh snap!
Him, like Kang did to MODOK.
Yes,
sit over there.
I love that. The fact that Aisha was just bowing down to his every word. He looked up on the footstool, say and opened his mouth. I loved all that. Performance was great, like you said. But Eman, where are you at, man? On Chuck Woody coming through as the High Evolutionary. Did it work for you? Did it not? How you feeling about him, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not putting him in my top 5 of MCU villains or nothing, but he got the job done. I liked Chuck Woody, especially in Peacemaker. He was one of my favorite characters in the entire series. I think he brought his Broadway or stage acting skills and put them on full display here. I like the physicality that he brought to the role. I thought that was actually pretty effective. And I think it did play into his character. Now, I'll slightly disagree just a little bit with Elliot. I did get the whole mad scientist feel from him. I mean, he was literally experimenting on animals and just killing them just out of nowhere. I mean, my man made a whole Ninja Turtle and then just fried him up, you know? So I was like, oh my gosh, like this dude is really, you know, all about that pursuit of knowledge and perfection and evolution and so on. And you know, he did remind me. I was getting Kang the Conqueror vibes. Like it was almost like they kind of looked at each other's homework or whatever and just kind of copied each other there. So, but the only difference is as he said, he's not trying to take over the world. He's just trying to make it better, right? Which technically is not a crime, but you know, maybe kidnapping and killing folks probably is.
Right.
So I liked what he brought to the character. And yeah, I didn't come in with any expectations. I knew of High Evolutionary from the comics, but that character is so wild, so obscure. I mean, most of those power sets that you listed, we ain't see those things. Right. He ain't had no regeneration. He ain't had no armor. He ain't had no telekinesis or nothing like that. He just had a little machine that controlled the gravity or whatever. And I mean, okay, that's cool or whatnot. But again, I also was not vastly interested in his background. I thought that what they gave us was enough because I didn't think he was that deep. He was kind of a one-dimensionally written character. He's that scientist that goes too far. And yes, he does have that God complex. And, you know, of course, coming from my religious background and studies, like I was very fascinated with that one line where, you know, even the other aliens was like, oh my God, oh God. And I was like, wait, y'all aliens believe in God? Like, oh, that's interesting to me. Are y'all talking about the one above all? Like what's going on? Like, I was kind of curious about that. But then when he finally snapped, was like, yo, there is no God. And that's why I stepped in.
I love that line.
You know what I'm saying? And like that to me is perfectly depicting the far extreme of scientism. Right, like the people that believe that science is the only way to get an answer of anything. You become a naturalist. You become someone who only believes in the material world. And I thought that worked perfectly for his character. And I thought he captured that. I thought he nailed all of that. But yeah, I mean, overall, he was cool. I was a little disappointed when he was fighting Rocket. I was like, them little raccoon scratches took you out. Like,
he was mad, man. He was.
Don't play with raccoons, man.
Don't get me
play
wrong.
with raccoons.
Listen, I'm in the Midwest. We got raccoons every day, every night. Okay, I understand.
Steroids.
They are not to be played with. But you telling me you can't push it away from your face? You're just gonna let it sit there and just tear your face up? That's it. So I'm just saying, I was kind of sitting there like, bro, if you don't push that thing off your face, I know he's gonna scratch you up real bad, but he gonna KO you like that. So anyway,
I'm off guard. I'm slipping.
I was overall, he's fine. He's not the greatest villain. He's not the worst villain. But yeah, performance wise, my man did a good job.
Already. I think the reason why when we got his mask taken off at the end, I think was that damage done from Rocket or you know, just
this is what you did to me.
Longevity. He was a very ugly looking person there. But Nagier, coming to you, sir, man, how did you feel about the High Evolutionary? Did he work for you? Did he not? And also the performance from Chuck Woody, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
I think it's pronounced Scooty Woogie. I think is how you pronounce his whole name.
You will know more than me, sir. You will know more than me. But how you feeling, man? How you feeling?
I love how Eman said that he didn't commit no crimes. Peter got a lot to say about that. They knocking on his door right now. They probably on James Gunn's door. Like, I can't believe how y'all had this animal cruelty whole elaborate scene. That shit hurt, man. Watching that, man. I was like, this ain't right. You all have really knocked out a lot of my comments. The only thing I really want to add is my first introduction to him was in one of my favorite shows in Designated Survivor. So I was excited to see this casting, but I was not expecting. I went to San Diego Comic-Con last year. I wasn't expecting for him to have this grand interest that they gave him. And y'all know how it is in the Marvel panels in Hall H. That thing is chaotic in there. And when he came through, I mean, he shut it down. It was a lot like his performance on the screen, where when he was talking, everybody was listening. And at that moment, I said, I know he's going to bring something very special to the screen, whether you like the character or not. I think the performance alone, much like Elliot said, is definitely worth talking about. And again, I think if you're indifferent about how they portrayed this character, I think he made this character his own, and I'm absolutely cool with that as well. But as far as like the character, I mean, again, y'all knocked a lot of the points here, but I definitely was feeling the mad scientist thing. And as you said, Eman, when it came down to him experimenting on the animals to no end, I was like, yeah, this dude is nuts. And I also do love that like we got a villain that wasn't just all about power and taking over the world, but just like, hey man, like things kind of crazy out here. Let me see if I can do something to change it. And one way or another, he comes from the Church of Scientology at this rate, and that's a scary thing in his own. So I'm like, you know what, this dude's got to go, man. Like, what he trying to aim for sounds heroic in a sense, but no, this is problematic. And every single time you get somebody that is very sure of what he's doing, so righteous in his actions, it's typically questionable to society. And I think that's kind of how you look at this character, along with some power set and whatnot. But I just enjoyed the performance, and I was just like, okay, cool. I wasn't expecting much in terms of like this character existing outside of Guardians. So I think he filled his role into much like you said, this was truly not beyond this being Rocket's redemption story, which I think he paid towards to counter that very well. This was truly about a story about imperfections and seeing the good in the imperfections. So I think the character and the ideology behind the character worked well.
Lovely. Did you like Counter Earth and what he was doing with all that?
Counter Earth is weird, but also I was sitting there like a nerd, like, wonder what their taxes and stuff is like there. I'm just thinking of all this random stuff.
Like, they were selling meth on the corner. So
that moved me.
Yeah,
pushing P was out there, man. Like,
yo, I was actually really surprised that they just destroyed that whole world.
Yeah,
man,
like
yeah.
I was like, all of them,
Control Alt Delete,
like all of them just gone.
Yeah, Control Alt Delete.
Golly.